Today we are talking about one of my favorite parts of business. I love to deal with people. I love to get referrals, hear that people have spread word about my business. Referrals, though, can feel safe. They convert well, they feel warm, they feel earned. But here is one uncomfortable question that I want you to think about for today's episode. If referrals slowed down in your business by 40% tomorrow, would your business feel stable or exposed? Because there is a big difference between having referrals and being completely dependent on referrals. If you ever say, or if you've ever think, almost all of my business is word of mouth, then your business is not scalable. Welcome to Grow My Wedding Business. My name's Chad Muncie. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the show where officiants, planners, DJs, photographers, venue owners, creatives, wedding professionals of all types get great advice. I'm so glad you joined me today. Today, I'm talking about referrals. And I talked about in the intro that these are one of my favorite things to coach people on, talk about. I've written complete guides on referrals. I think they are such a great part of your business and can become a major aspect of getting leads into your business. And that's also a little dangerous because referrals can easily become something that we depend on as business owners. For years, before I coached anybody in anything, before I wrote guides, before I did any of this stuff, I was still learning lessons every day. I was learning lessons that would eventually help me to coach other business owners. And I told myself something at that time that sounded really wise. If I just do great work, customers will experience that and word of mouth will take care of my business. And I learned this, unfortunately, from my parents who were both entrepreneurs, and they depended on word of mouth. But they were in industries such as being a barber or doing something that was widely needed. Now, I'm not saying there aren't a ton of weddings, but weddings are a very high turnover. They can be if you're not competitive. The wedding industry is also highly competitive, and a lot of other businesses can depend on word of mouth. But if we are trying to grow, if we're trying to scale as business owners, and if we're serious. Now, if you, I'm kind of backtracking here. If you don't care and you're okay having an average business, not knowing every year exactly how much your potential income can be, not becoming more profitable, fine. But we as business owners cannot sit back and rely just on referrals if we are wanting to scale, if we are wanting to grow. So that is why this episode, in my opinion, is not more important than other episodes, but it can be depending on where you're at in your business and what you think about word of mouth. So when I was back in the day, let's go back. When I was back in the day and I was working my wedding business every day, trying to work my butt off to grow my business, when I was just an officiant and I offered some other services, people rented things, I had packages where they could have weddings on the beach, referrals were steady for a while. They were steady for like a year and a half. Vendors would send couples to me. I felt like I was in demand because I would get referrals and vendors were sending me couples. Things started to feel stable. And I didn't think there was any need for me to go into any kind of complicated marketing. I don't have to learn any other thing. I don't have to go and do any of this other marketing I see people doing online. I'm going to be just fine because word of mouth is enough. And then there was a shift. It worked until it didn't. Venue staff changed. I didn't see that coming. Duh, they were going to change, but I wasn't experienced. I didn't think about it. A preferred vendor list would get shuffled around. Somebody else would build stronger relationships because they knew they couldn't rely on it, and I didn't. Or maybe just the season, in my case, slowed down, and it dipped unexpectedly for the first time in my business, and I was like, wow, I have no business because I was completely dependent on word of mouth. Here's a quote that I want you to remember. When your growth depends on other people remembering you, your growth depends on other people. And when that happens, you don't control your growth. So when your growth depends on other people for any reason, you don't control your growth. And if you're going to scale, if you're going to grow, you have got to be in control. So that is what we are going to dive into today. So let's go. The myth. Here's the myth. Word of mouth will take care of my business. You have heard it. I know you've heard it. You may have thought it. You may have said it. I have heard it. I have thought it. And I have said it. And that's why I'm here talking to you about it. My business is built completely on word of mouth, and I need not worry about a thing. Word of mouth, it just keeps me so busy. Most of the time when you hear somebody say it, when you say it, when you think it, you are working your tail off. You're working constantly, and growth and scaling, because you're so busy, are a distant dream for you. Now, don't get me wrong. Referrals, they are powerful. They're warm. They convert well because they're already trusted. People already know you, so they have that know, like, and trust factor usually. But referrals cannot and are not a strategy. They cannot be your strategy. They are not a strategy. They are a result of a strategy. So hear me say that again. Referrals shouldn't be a strategy. They should be a result of a strategy. A solid strategy that has no guesswork. Will it work or not? In the Grow My Wedding Business school community, I talk about this quite a bit. I talk about how important this absolute proven strategy is in your business. And I say that a lot. People are like, how can it be an absolute strategy? How can you know it works? You just can. And when I talk about a little bit more of this, you'll start to understand, it'll start to sink in that, oh, this is something that I can have in my business. This is something that I can count on when I need it. This is something that will send me leads and referrals when my business starts to dip. Referrals happen because of a few things. So let's cover those. Referrals happen, first of all, because you had clarity. You have to get a moment of clarity and understand that referrals cannot be built on hope. Referrals happen because you and your business has structure. If it doesn't have structure built up enough to where you can count on a lead system that works and is proven, then you don't have the structure yet, and you need to work on it. You need to build it. Referrals happen because you built confidence in yourself. You came across a moment of clarity and you have this confidence that says, hey, I know I can do this. I see other people doing it. I see other businesses that are growing wildly and they're successful. I know that I can do it. And then referrals happen because you had those three: your clarity, your structure, and your confidence create a word that is absolutely necessary in your business, and that is consistency. Your business must be consistent. Your leads must be consistent. Your systems, the procedures that you have, must be consistent. And that is when, this may be that moment, okay? This may be the moment, in fact, right now. Maybe it just hits you. You're like, oh, I need the clarity. I want to learn more. So let's keep going. You realize, finally, I have to get some real systems in my business. I have to figure out where the bottlenecks are in my business. I have to do the work, and that's what it is. Unfortunately, a lot of people want shortcuts now. They want to go online. They want to find some kind of course that will teach them a workaround, but it's going to take a moment to get some clarity and figure out what work you need to do. But if you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to tell you how to do it. You can have a constant flow of referrals. Referrals are supposed to be downstream. A lot of people, when they think about referrals, they think about referrals coming in, and referrals do come in, but they're supposed to be downstream. Referrals are supposed to be received because you have a system that is upstream sending you referrals. Referrals aren't supposed to find you. Referrals are supposed to be sent to you by the thing, the system, the process that you have put in place. The referral system is what you set up upstream to receive the referrals downstream at whatever pace you decide. In the last episode, I talked a little bit about how in the Wedding Pro playbook, pricing is a positioning. Pricing is not just numbers, it is a positioning decision for your business. There are decisions that you make in your business that will position you either in a low tier category when people perceive your business and they look at your business. They'll see it in a low tier. Maybe they'll see it in a mid tier because you've positioned it that way, or you've positioned it where people will see it in a high tier level. And that's what we all desire. I also explained that referrals are earned through however you've already positioned your business. So if you haven't positioned your business for the perception to be received, you're going to get referrals from the low end, you're going to get referrals from the mid end, the level, and you're going to get referrals from the high end. Or as you heard me talk last time about 5-star service is what I was trying to offer. I talked about how in the last episode, when I first started my business, I got referrals that were from the low end because I hadn't positioned my business. So that is something you have to do first. So you see, there are only two types of referrals in business. There are accidental referrals, which most people are getting accidental referrals. They don't even know it. And there are, number 2, intentional referrals. A lot of people don't get intentional referrals, but that's what they think they are getting. But then they get people that don't care about the quality of their service and don't want to pay them for the quality of their service, and they're hard to get along with. And it's because this whole system of qualifying customers, positioning your business, having a referral system has not been set up yet. Most wedding pros are getting accidental referrals. And my goal is I want to see every accidental referral business out there. If that's you, I want to see you become an intentional referral business that has consistent and intentional referrals because you have a system and a process in place that can be switched on when you need it. It can be switched off when you're getting an overload of business in. And it can be that way. We talk about this. I talk about this in the Relationship Advantage lesson that's in the free school community. And so I hope you'll check that out if you have any interest in what I'm saying. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper here, okay? I'm going to try to stay, there's a lot in this, but I'm going to try to skim every little part of this so that you can learn on the other end of wherever you're watching or listening to this. So first, what is actually happening when referrals dry up? Let's look at what happens when your referrals are coming in and all of a sudden it's like somebody turned a switch to off and your referrals dry up. Let's think through these that are not just possible, that are really common. These are common scenarios. So maybe a venue coordinator. This is what I experienced when mine cut off. I actually dug in a little bit and was like, why is this happening? I have to understand why this is happening so that it doesn't happen again. First of all, I had a venue coordinator that left their position, and guess what they took with them when they left their position? They took their master list of people they were referring to clients. And when a new venue coordinator or manager for that venue came in, they started with a fresh list. And I didn't have any system, process, checks and balances, just a call around once a month to make sure there was no new manager. I didn't have anything in place to make sure that this didn't happen. And this happens every day. You've got to have something in place to make sure that you are safeguarded, where if they have a list you don't have a list with a person, you have a list with the venue. And if they have a list, almost like their little black book that they take out and talk to couples, when they leave, you need to figure out a way to teach them how it's better to have a list that's visible to their couples and with the venue. And there are ways to do that we talk about. Another thing that happens, a really common scenario, is a preferred list shuffle. So sometimes what happens is they'll have a list and they'll start adding people to it. And once you get past, so when you build a website, let me talk about this first. When you build a website, the first thing you see on the web page before you scroll down is called above the fold. Okay. So think about a vendor list like that. A lot of vendor lists are on websites. A lot of lists with preferred vendors that venues have are a piece of paper or a brochure that they give couples. And what happens is you are probably among 2 or 3 other people in your same category. If you're a photographer, there's probably 2 other photographers. If you're an officiant, there's probably 2 other officiants. And what happens is once you get below the fold, so you have the list, and the top of that list, I'd say about 30% of that is what people look at first. And once you get below that 30 or 40% top half, you actually start receiving less referrals. This is crazy, but there is a way to stay top of the fold on that preferred vendor list. Now, that is not one of the main ways, but that is a way that you stop receiving referrals, and you've got to have a safeguard against that. You have to have a closer relationship, and you have to stay above the fold. Another thing is a new vendor might become the favorite, and that kind of goes into that. A new vendor becomes the favorite, and they get put on that list. The list gets too big and they have to remove somebody. Maybe you've been removed. Market shifts. You cannot control when a market shifts and the market changes a little bit. So maybe your pricing is a little skewed compared to the marketplace, but there is a system that you can set in place to make sure you stay competitive with anything that shifts in the market so you don't have to worry about it. Another thing is an economic dip. We call that low season. Oh, I'm having a low season right now. Well, there is a way to correct what I talk about is the wave and make that a straight line so you don't dip. When you start to dip, you can turn the on switch for your referral system on and you start getting more leads. Another thing that happens is a lot of times we'll raise prices. You raise prices once a year. You should be raising prices once a year if you're doing it correctly. And this instantly changes some of your target audience. The target audience that is at the bottom of your price pool all of a sudden disappears when you raise prices. So you lose those. So you have to have a system in place to pull out, when your pricing moves up, the top half of those pricing tier customers that you haven't been reaching and start getting those leads in. So think about this. If 40 to 50% of your business comes from referrals, and a lot of times that is the case. 40 to 50% of my business came from referrals. But depending on how much you depend on them, what would happen if 40% of those referrals disappeared? Just let that sink in and let that cause you to have more of a desire to fix this problem. And I promise, I don't want you to experience the same things that I experienced when my business basically went from going 100% to 30%. So I promise if you listen and you try to put these things in place, it will change the amount of referrals that you have coming in. I've seen professionals panic when one venue stopped referring them because they were like, oh no, that's what I'm depending on. And that is going to affect my bottom line, my profit, how I feed my family. And it does unless you have safeguards in place. Dependence always feels stable until it isn't. And that's when we learn harsh lessons, unfortunately. So really, why can't referrals alone scale a business? This is part 1 of a 2-part awesome episode. So please wait till you have time to listen to the whole second half and go to episode 2. I can't wait to talk to you there. Hey, before you go, did you know I wrote a book called Wedding Pro Playbook? And it is a manual that teaches you how to take your business from zero to the top. I also created a school community specifically for wedding business owners, and you can go get the book here or go to school here. I'll see you soon.